Hello everybody, I'm KC and welcome to an edition of Let's Talk About, and welcome to the latest installment of To Infinity War and Beyond. If you're one of those people who wondered where Thor and Hulk were in Civil War, who I guess didn't see the end of Age of Ultron, it's time to find out as we wrap up the last of the original Marvel franchises with Thor Ragnarok. When Thor returns to Asgard and discovers that Loki is alive, he sets out to restore Odin to the throne. In the process, he discovers his sister, Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, who proceeds to take over Asgard and exiles Thor to the other side of the galaxy, where he fights to make things right and get home, and in the process discover what home really means. I finally got to see Ragnarok, after having most of it spoiled for me over the last few months. Yeah, that kinda sucked, because there are a lot of twists and turns in this movie that I wouldn't have seen coming otherwise. I don't even know where to start with this one, because the story is just one constant adventure. It's almost exhausting, but in a good way. Thor has definitely been the Marvel franchise that has had the most difficulty finding its footing, and even though I wish they had taken a bit more time to process certain developments in this one, I think we finally struck the right balance with the Thor franchise. It's a shame that this is the final film, but you can't say they didn't end on a high note. First of all, yes, this movie is a ton of fun. With a more vibrant color palette in the production design, much more witty dialogue than the first two movies, I could definitely see this becoming one of the most quoted Marvel movies. And every single action scene in this movie overwhelms you with the screams of awesome emitting from every frame. But the Led Zeppelin music. I don't know if this completely ruins the mood or makes it even more badass, but I'm gonna roll with it. But I do have to speculate if this movie would be as different in tone to the other Thor movies as it was if the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't become as successful as it did. It is very similar in tone, I'm just saying. But hey, if all Marvel movies set in space are gonna be like this, I ain't complaining. And like Civil War, this movie benefits entirely from having the MCU history to help tell its story. There's constant references to the history between these characters, and then there's Doctor Strange's 5 minutes. I kinda love how we've reached the point where main Marvel heroes can just pop in to lend a hand and then go on their way. Thor only spends a couple minutes with Strange at the Sanctum Sanctorum, but it's a very memorable couple of minutes. I'm really impressed with how much he's advanced in his skills since the last time we saw him. Good for you, Steven. Though like I said, I am a little bit annoyed at how they brush certain things aside. Last time we saw Thor, he was searching for information on the Infinity Stones, and he's done with that by the time we see him again. And then there was this.
Sorry to hear that Jane dumped you.
She didn't dump me, you know. I dumped her. It's a mutual dumping.
It was mutual when Natalie Portman wouldn't renew her contract. I don't know, I know people have mixed feelings on Jane, and to be fair, I do too, but it seemed weird to have someone who was so essential in shaping who Thor is now to just be brushed aside in one line. But on the plus side, it means no more Darcy. Woo! And to be fair, in their place, we get the Grandmaster, played by Jeff Goldblum, whose character I don't really have anything analytical to say on. He's just the best. That's all. Just the best. And the drunken bounty hunter / warrior, Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson, who is not only a total badass, but it's kind of interesting to see another Asgardian who questions the ways of their monarchy like Thor, and who left under bitter circumstances like Loki. She has a really solid backstory, and Tessa Thompson gives a really memorable performance. Apparently she'll be returning for Infinity War, and you can bet that I am hyped. I also appreciate that they didn't try to make her a romantic interest. I'm sure the shippers are out there, but as far as on screen, it's a nice change of pace. But going back to using the MCU's expansive history to tell the story, the biggest appearance of all was... I gotta say, I was surprised at the direction they took with Hulk and Banner here. When I first heard he was gonna be in the movie, I was so curious to find out how he wound up on another planet. And at first it seems like the movie hand waves it off by saying he was in the Quinjet, but last we heard, that seemed to have vanished in the ocean. But then I remembered a line from earlier that almost broke my heart. And I like that how the Hulk got here, became the dominant personality, and is being so stubborn about staying is explained, but not directly. It's all subtext. By this point in the MCU, the Hulk has either been an obstacle for Bruce to control, or a means to an end. But because the Hulk himself is much more articulate now, and seems to have motives of his own, he becomes more of a character in his own right. To the point that it seems to be affecting Bruce mentally. He completely blacked out while the Hulk was in control, and seems a bit disoriented. Though that could be from waking up 2 years later in space, but who knows. And I really appreciated the callback to Natasha's calming method to turn Hulk back into Bruce. It didn't work, but I still like that Thor gave it a try. And just like everyone else, Hulk and Bruce deliver just as many laughs as they do feels, especially when it comes to their interactions with Loki, which are priceless. So all that is fun and good. But then there's the fact that Odin dies, the Warriors 3 are killed, Mjolnir is destroyed, Thor loses an eye, and Asgard is completely destroyed by Surtur, and people say this is the fun one? I mean, I get it, the tone overall is pretty silly and mostly have to have fun, especially compared to the other Thor movies, but this journey, as fun as it was, stripped Thor of everything and forces him to rise above it the best he can. Sure, it's wrapped in fun and laughs, but at its core, it's a compelling conclusion to Thor's journey. And the best examples of juggling both of these tones is not only with Hulk, but with Thor and Loki. Oh, Loki, where do I begin? I can easily say one of the things I was most excited about with this movie was seeing the outcome of Loki's actions at the end of Dark World, and it really didn't disappoint. The first time we see him is when he's still disguised as Odin, admiring a play about his heroic death, which is hilarious, but I don't know, I kinda like the stage version of this movie better.
I am the god of thunder!
Oh, and extra points for having Thor be played by Chris Hemsworth's brother, Luke Hemsworth. And I was expecting a lot of Loki backstabbing Thor for his own gain, and while there is some of that, I'd argue that that's just still in his nature. For the most part, they're just reluctantly working together and even coming to a bit of an understanding by the end. And there is something that is special about their dynamic this time. I hadn't realized it until I saw this movie that Thor and Loki haven't really spent much time together in the movies. I'd be shocked if their interactions add up to more than 20 minutes of the entire cinematic universe. But they spend most of this movie in the same area, are forced to work together more, and because Thor is realizing that his brother has been alive all this time, and Loki has technically been fulfilling his dream of ruling Asgard, there's not much for them to quarrel about this time around. With the exception of about 10 minutes in the Dark World, this is the first time they have a common enemy and goal. And yeah, Loki is still mostly out for himself, but their father is gone and he's ruled Asgard. There's no reason for him to be vengeful anymore. I don't think Loki has learned from his past transgressions, but I don't think he's as bitter and angry as he used to be. And I do think he does care about Thor. Just look at his face when Thor realizes his true power. He seems almost proud of him. I'd say he's come full circle and changed for the better now, but we all saw the Infinity War trailers. It's not looking good. Now let's finally, properly, talk about the God of Thunder, who right off the bat definitely has a different way of approaching things. I know Thor has always been a bit boastful, but a quipster, not so much. I could understand if anyone was turned off by this shift, and it did make me tilt my head a bit at first, but I realized that when someone who's already a bit prideful becomes friends with people like Tony Stark, it makes a lot more sense that his way of speaking would change a bit. And come on, that opening scene is awesome. I mean, if I'm not here to watch Thor battle a demon fire dragon in the first 5 minutes, then why even bother with these movies? But again, this movie isn't all fun and games. In fact, it's crazy just how much this movie hits you with, especially as far as Thor is concerned. Sure, there's fun to be had, but in just the first 20 minutes, Thor's entire life is changed. His brother is alive, who he genuinely mourned for. His father dies in front of him, which, side note, this may be my favorite performance from Anthony Hopkins yet. Not only can he play Loki perfectly, but his final moments are genuinely moving. I got really choked up even though I knew it was coming. He finds out he has a sister who destroys his hammer and his home. Almost all of his allies back home are either killed or got a TV show. At least I'm assuming that's why Lady Sif isn't in this. And then he's sent to the other side of the galaxy when his home needs him the most. And perhaps most traumatizing of all, they cut his hair. I honestly thought we were gonna get some kind of Mulan-style transformation scene to go with that change, but nope, Stan Lee just chops it off. While I still think revelations like these probably could have been given more time to breathe, it's not without impact. The movie does get fairly heavy when they find Odin and doesn't start having fun again until after Thor gets on Sakaar. And even then, all he wants to do is get back to Asgard. He's only messing around to get through the process to save his home and people. And I think that's the most important thing to take away for Thor as a character in this movie. He always loved his home and his people, but ever since he fell in love with life on Earth, he didn't think there was a proper place for him on Asgard. He questioned his father's actions and didn't believe he could follow in his footsteps. But the brilliant thing about the inclusion of Hela, besides Cate Blanchett's marvelously devious performance, was that he wasn't supposed to. Hela shows just how corrupt Odin and Asgard's monarchy was, but what made Asgard strong isn't the place, but its people, no matter where they go. And that could sum up Thor's entire character arc. He spent these movies trying to choose between two worlds, but in the process became a strong, compassionate leader who was willing to make tough calls for the sake of protecting others. What was holding him back was thinking he had to follow the path Odin set for him. Ruling Asgard and being an Avenger aren't mutually exclusive, and I absolutely love just how well they foreshadowed the events of this final battle. Thor admits that he mourned and still cares for Loki, and for now, that's enough to keep him around at his brother's side. Thor's true power slowly evolved throughout the movie, and I thought that Surtur was just going to be the opening battle, which I also thought was weird for such a big Thor villain. But to find out that the only solution to stop Hela was to have Surtur destroy the entire planet was a brilliant twist. All this time, I wasn't quite sure how Thor's arc was going to conclude, since it didn't seem to fit to have all this end with him on the throne. But for me, this turned out to be a perfect conclusion. Overall, Thor Ragnarok is the amazing Thor movie we've all been waiting for. Thor as a franchise has by no means been bad, but not as great as its fellow Marvel series. And while this movie does throw a lot at you and change a lot about the series pretty quickly, it was packed with so many awesome moments and characters and action and drama, I'm not even sure if this review did it justice. Even though everything has changed and there was quite a bit of sacrifice, Thor came out of this adventure stronger than ever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
That's not the way to get ahead in life.
No.
It's a shame he wasn't more headstrong. He'll never be the head of a major corporation.
Okay, that'll do.
Okay.